The air duct was tight, but Tom Reed had squeezed through tighter spaces during his 3 years as a maintenance technician on the International Space Station. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with his sleeve and checked his tablet one more time. According to the schedule, this section of the new alien embassy wing would be empty for the next 4 hours. Just another day fixing rich aliens' air conditioning, he muttered to himself, shuffling forward on his elbows. The metal beneath him creaked softly. The station's newest addition, built to house the visiting Stellar Empire delegation, was a maze of gleaming corridors and overly complicated technology. Tom often wondered why a species advanced enough for faster-than-light travel couldn't figure out how to make a simple air filtration system that didn't break down every other week. He reached the section marked on his map and began removing the access panel. The job was simple enough. Replace the faulty air filter and check the connection points. 20 minutes tops. Then he could get back to the human section of the station where things made sense. The panel came loose easier than expected. Much easier. Oh, she. Tom didn't finish the word as the entire section gave way beneath him. He fell through the ceiling in a shower of dust and debris, landing hard on his back. The impact knocked the wind out of him. As he lay there gasping, the first thing he noticed was that the room wasn't empty. The second thing he noticed made his jaw drop. Standing frozen in the middle of the luxurious chamber was a tall, slim figure with iridescent blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the starlight streaming through the viewport. She wore what looked like royal robes, but they were only partially on, hanging awkwardly from one shoulder. More surprisingly, her arms were raised above her head in a position that looked suspiciously like, "Is that the Macarena?" Tom wheezed out before his brain could stop his mouth. The alien princess, because that's clearly who she was, given the ornate crown sitting crooked on her head, let out a high-pitched sound somewhere between a squeak and a chirp. She quickly pulled her robes properly around herself, her skin shifting from blue to a deeper purple that Tom guessed was the alien equivalent of a blush. "This is not what it appears to be," she declared in the formal tones of the royal court, though the effect was somewhat ruined by her continued purple complexion. "I was merely conducting research on primitive human cultural rituals." Tom pushed himself up to sitting position, wincing. "With all due respect, Your Highness, that's definitely the Macarena, though your timing was a bit off on the hit swing." The princess's mouth dropped open in a perfect O of shock. On the floating display screen behind her, Tom could now see a paused video of human dancers performing the very same dance. Several other tabs showed what appeared to be various Earth dance tutorials. "You will speak of this to no one," she commanded, trying to sound regal despite her obvious embarrassment. "I am Lady Blue of the First House of the Stellar Empire, and I order you to." She was interrupted by the sound of running feet in the corridor. The door burst open, and 3 royal guards rushed in, their ceremonial armor clanking. They took in the scene. Their princess in disarray, a human maintenance worker sitting in a pile of ceiling debris, and the still-playing dance tutorials. "Seize this intruder," the lead guard shouted, reaching for his weapon. "Wait," both Tom and the princess said at the same time, then looked at each other in surprise. "He is my—" Lady Blue paused, clearly thinking fast. Her eyes darted from Tom to the ceiling to the dance videos and back. "My newly appointed cultural consultant." The guards froze. Tom froze. Even the dust particles in the air seemed to freeze. "I am?" Tom asked. "You are," Lady Blue said firmly, her skin returning to its normal blue as she regained her composure. "After all, who better to teach me about human culture than someone who has already witnessed my dedication to learning it?" Tom looked at the hole in the ceiling, then at the guards' confused faces, and finally at the princess, who was giving him a look that somehow managed to be both pleading and threatening at the same time. "Right," he said slowly. "Cultural consultant. Just another day at the office." The next hour in Lady Blue's chambers was the strangest of Tom's life. The royal guards stood stiffly by the door, their hands never far from their weapons, while a parade of flustered attendants rushed around trying to restore order to the room. "The cultural consultant will sit there," Lady Blue announced, pointing to a floating chair that looked more like an art piece than furniture. Tom approached it carefully, half expecting it to disappear like a soap bubble when he touched it. "Your Radiance," one of the attendants spoke up, her pink skin paling to almost white with anxiety. "The human cannot sit in the chair of diplomatic relations. It's reserved for beings of the 7th rank or higher." Tom started to back away, but Lady Blue held up one elegant blue hand. "He has seen me practicing the sacred earth ritual of Macarena. By our own laws of mutual embarrassment, he must be elevated to an appropriate rank." "But, Your Radiance," the attendant began, "would you prefer I explain to the royal court exactly why I needed to promote him so quickly?" Lady Blue's skin rippled with colors that somehow managed to convey both threat and amusement. The attendant's mouth snapped shut. Tom sat down gingerly. The chair adjusted itself to his body, feeling like he was sitting on a cloud. A very expensive, very worried cloud. "Now then," Lady Blue said, settling into her own, much more elaborate chair, "let us discuss this situation like civilized beings." She paused, then added quickly, "No offense meant regarding the civilized comment." "None taken," Tom replied, trying not to smile. "Though I should mention that the Macarena isn't exactly what we call a sacred ritual. It's more of a party dance from the 1990s. The attendants gasped. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. Lady Blue's skin shifted through several shades of blue before settling on a deep azure. "You mean, I have spent 3 lunar cycles practicing a common celebration movement?" She sounded scandalized. "If it helps," Tom offered, "you were doing better than most humans do on their first try. Except for the hip swing part." A small snort of laughter escaped the princess before she could stop it. The attendants looked like they might faint. "This is exactly why I find humans so fascinating," Lady Blue declared. "You speak truth without fear, you find humor in imperfection, and you dance without caring about rank or status." "Well, you haven't seen me dance," Tom joked. "There's a reason I stick to fixing air ducts." Another small laugh from the princess. One of the guards made a choking sound. "Your Radiance," a new voice interrupted. A tall, gray-skinned alien in elaborate robes swept into the room. "I was informed there was a situation." "First Minister Gray." Lady Blue straightened in her chair. "I was just consulting with my new cultural advisor about Earth customs." The First Minister's eyes narrowed as they took in the scene. The hole in the ceiling, the still visible dance videos, the humans sitting in a sacred chair. "I see," they said in a tone that could have frozen nitrogen. "And this consultation required destroying part of the royal chambers." "Actually," Tom spoke up, "that was my fault. There was a scheduling mix-up with the maintenance work. I can have it fixed in an hour." "A scheduling mix-up?" First Minister Gray's voice went even colder. "In the royal chambers. During the princess's private preparation time. Impossible. Our systems are perfect." "Well," Tom said, pulling out his tablet, "according to this section was supposed to be empty for—" He stopped, noticing something. "Oh, the schedule's in Stellar Standard Time. I was reading it in Earth hours." Lady Blue's skin rippled with suppressed laughter. "So the great cultural exchange that will surely reshape our two-species relationship was caused by a time zone confusion." "Apparently," Tom shrugged. "Though in my defense, your time system is based on the rotation of a planet I'd never even seen." This time, Lady Blue didn't bother suppressing her laugh. The sound was like tinkling crystals, and even some of the guards' stern expressions softened. First Minister Gray looked like they had bit into something sour. "This is completely unacceptable. The human must be given immediate access to all human-alien diplomatic schedules." Lady Blue interrupted smoothly, "to prevent any further cultural exchanges. After all, we wouldn't want to risk any more accidental violations of protocol, would we?" The First Minister's mouth opened and closed several times before they managed a stiff bow. "As your radiance wishes." Tom looked at the princess with newfound respect. She might have been caught doing the Macarena, but she clearly knew how to dance through political waters too. The next morning, Tom stared at his reflection in the mirror of his small station quarters. The simple maintenance uniform had been replaced with something that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie. The outfit shimmered with subtle patterns that moved across the fabric like waves. "How do aliens get anything done when their clothes keep distracting them?" he muttered, trying to figure out which way the collar was supposed to face. His tablet buzzed with a message. "Cultural consultant needed immediately in Diplomatic Hall B." Below that was a string of text in stellar script that his translator rendered as, "Don't be late, Earth Standard Time." When Tom arrived at the hall, he found it packed with both humans and aliens. Earth's diplomatic team stood on one side, looking nervous. The royal court clustered on the other, looking offended. In the middle, Lady Blue sat on her floating throne, her skin cycling through shades of blue that Tom was starting to recognize as her version of holding back laughter. "Ah, cultural consultant Reed," she announced as he entered. "Please explain to the gathered assembly the human ritual of Casual Friday." Tom blinked. "I'm sorry. What?" First Minister Gray stepped forward, their gray skin almost white with anger. "The princess has proposed implementing this barbaric human custom in the royal court. It is unthinkable." "It's just a day where people dress more comfortably for work," Tom explained, wondering how this had become a diplomatic crisis. It started in human offices to boost morale. But what about dignity? Protocol. The proper respect due to rank and station, one of the royal advisors demanded. "Well," Tom said carefully, "humans found that being comfortable actually helped people work better. And it showed that even important people are still people." "Fascinating." Lady Blue's skin brightened to a brilliant azure. "So humans intentionally break formal protocols to achieve better results. How wonderfully practical." The royal court looked scandalized. The human diplomats looked terrified. Tom was starting to get a headache. Perhaps, First Minister Gray suggested silkily, the cultural consultant would care to demonstrate this custom. Surely he wouldn't propose something he himself wouldn't do. Tom looked down at his fancy new clothes, then at Lady Blue. She gave him a tiny nod. "Actually," he said, reaching up to the complicated collar, "I would be happy to demonstrate." With a few quick movements, he removed the outer layer of the formal outfit, revealing the simple black t-shirt he'd worn underneath. "This is much more comfortable. And I bet I can fix an air duct faster without sleeves that change color every 5 seconds." A shocked murmur ran through the royal court. But before anyone could object, Lady Blue stood up. With graceful movements, she removed the outer layer of her royal robes, revealing a simpler, though still elegant outfit underneath. "Your Radiance." First Minister Gray gasped. "You cannot." "I cannot what?" Lady Blue asked sweetly. "Learn from other cultures. Adapt to new ideas. Isn't that why we came to Earth in the first place?" Her skin rippled with patterns that somehow conveyed both authority and amusement. But, the protocols will be updated," Lady Blue declared, "starting with Casual Friday." In fact, she turned to the human diplomatic team, who were trying very hard not to look too pleased. "I believe humans also have a custom called leading by example. Cultural consultant Reed, would you be willing to teach me more about human maintenance work? I find myself curious about these air ducts that seem to cause so much trouble." Tom caught the gleam in her eye and understood. This wasn't just about casual clothes or maintenance work. This was about breaking down barriers, one small protocol at a time. "It would be my honor, Your Radiance," he said, then added with a small smile, "though maybe we should use the doors this time instead of the ceiling." Lady Blue's answering laugh filled the hall with the sound of tinkling crystals, while First Minister Gray looked like they might need a maintenance worker to fix their malfunctioning expression. "Careful with that wrench, Your Radiance," Tom said, watching as Lady Blue floated next to him in the maintenance shaft. She wore a simplified version of her royal outfit, now adorned with practical tool pockets. Her skin glowed softly, providing better light than his work lamp. "I told you, when we're doing maintenance work, you can call me Blue," she said, carefully turning the wrench just as he had shown her. "It's another example of human casual Friday principles, isn't it?" Tom smiled. It had been 2 weeks since the princess had started her practical education in station maintenance. To everyone's surprise, she was a quick learner and genuinely interested in understanding how things worked. "You know," Blue said, finishing the repair, "I've been studying humans for longer than anyone knows." She pulled out a small data crystal from her pocket. "Look at this." The crystal projected a hologram of what appeared to be human television shows, movies, and internet videos. There were hundreds of them, all carefully categorized and annotated. "You've been collecting these?" Tom asked, amazed at the size of the library. "Ever since we first detected your broadcasts," she admitted. "The royal court thought they were just random noise, but I saw something fascinating. Humans are so free with their emotions, their ideas. You make mistakes and laugh about them. You solve problems in ways we'd never think of. Like using a wrench instead of a molecular reconstructor." Tom grinned. "Exactly." Blue's skin rippled with excitement. "Your solutions are often simpler, but they work. Sometimes they work better than our complicated methods. Do you know how long it takes to calibrate a molecular reconstructor? By the time you set it up, you could have fixed 10 things with your primitive tools." A noise from the shaft entrance made them both turn. First Minister Gray's face appeared in the opening, looking horrified at the sight of the princess holding a wrench. "Your Radiance, what are you doing in this maintenance tunnel?" "Learning efficiency," Blue replied calmly. "Did you know that human tools don't need 3 hours of safety protocols before each use? They just work." But these are tasks for lower ranks." Gray sputtered. "Are they?" Blue's skin darkened to a deep authoritative blue. "Then explain why our advanced maintenance systems break down twice as often as the human ones. Why does it take our technicians 4 times as long to make repairs?" "That's because..." Gray stopped, realizing they didn't have an answer. "Because we've become so focused on protocol and rank that we've forgotten the value of practical knowledge," Blue finished. She turned back to the repair she was making. "Did you need something specific, Minister? We're rather busy here." Gray's face went through several interesting colors before they managed to speak. "The royal court has concerns about your new educational directions." "The royal court," Blue said while perfectly tightening a bolt, "is welcome to join my next lesson. I believe Tom is going to show me how to fix the coffee machine in the human section. Apparently, it's considered a vital piece of equipment." "Coffee machine." Gray looked like they might faint. "But that's essential to human productivity." Tom jumped in, trying not to laugh. "Very important diplomatic relations tool, actually. You'd be surprised how many agreements are reached over a good cup of coffee." Blue's skin flickered with suppressed amusement. "Indeed. Perhaps we should install one in the royal conference room. Another step toward better human-alien relations." Gray backed away from the maintenance shaft opening, like it might bite them. I will convey your suggestions to the court, Your Radiance." After they left, Blue let out her tinkling laugh. "Their face when I mentioned the coffee machine. But you know what's funny? I really am interested in learning how it works. These simple human machines, they're like puzzles. Each one teaches me something new about how your people think." Tom looked at the princess, this alien royal who was happily learning to fix machines and break protocols, and realized she might understand humans better than anyone else in the Stellar Empire. "Well then," he said, pulling out his tablet, "wait until you see how a toaster works. Now that's a real piece of human engineering." First Minister Gray stood before the secret meeting of royal advisors, their gray skin almost black with determination. The room was deep in the alien section of the station, shielded from all monitoring devices. "This has gone too far," Gray declared. "Yesterday, I found the princess installing a human coffee machine in the royal dining hall, with her own hands." The assembled advisors gasped in horror. "And that's not all," Gray continued. "She has requested to learn what she calls basic engineering." Basic, as if any form of engineering could be basic. They slammed their hand on the floating table. "We must put a stop to this human influence." "But how?" asked one advisor. "The princess seems quite determined." Gray's skin rippled with dark satisfaction. "I have designed a series of tests. Each one will prove that human methods are inferior. We will show everyone that their primitive approaches have no place in our advanced society." Tom knew something was wrong the moment he entered the main engineering bay. All the royal engineers were gathered around a complex machine that was making angry noises. Cultural consultant Reed, First Minister Gray's voice dripped with fake politeness. "How fortunate you're here. We seem to be having a small problem with our quantum stabilizer." Blue stood nearby, her skin showing swirls of worry. "The stabilizer controls artificial gravity in this section. Our engineers can't seem to find the problem." Tom looked at the machine. It was far more complex than anything he usually worked with, full of glowing parts and hovering pieces that moved in strange patterns. "Maybe if we use the molecular reconstructor," one engineer started. "No time," Gray interrupted. "The system will fail in 10 minutes. Surely the human can show us one of those simple solutions they're so famous for." Tom recognized the trap. They had set this up to make him fail. But as he looked at the machine, something familiar caught his eye. "This part here," he pointed to a small component. "It looks like it's vibrating wrong." "Wrong," Gray scoffed. "That's a quantum harmonic oscillator. It's supposed to vibrate." "Yeah, but it's vibrating like my washing machine does when it's off balance," Tom said. He pulled out his tablet and held it near the component. "See, the pattern's irregular." Blue floated closer, her skin brightening with interest. "He's right. The vibration is causing a cascade effect through the quantum field." "Impossible," Gray declared. "Our systems are perfect. They don't get off balance like primitive human machines." "Everything can get off balance," Tom said, already opening his toolkit. "Even quantum stuff. We just need to." He reached in with a simple wrench and made a tiny adjustment to the mounting bracket holding the oscillator. The angry noise stopped. The machine's patterns smoothed out. But that's not possible," one of the engineers stammered. "You can't fix a quantum stabilizer with a wrench." "Why not?" Blue asked, her skin showing patterns of amusement. The oscillator was loose in its housing. It didn't matter how perfect the quantum field was if the physical mount was vibrating. "Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one," Tom added, putting away his tools. Gray's skin had gone almost white with rage. "This proves nothing. Anyone could have." An alarm blared through the station. "Warning. Environmental system malfunction in Royal Quarter. Backup systems engaging." "How strange," Gray said, not sounding strange at all. "Another problem requiring attention. Shall we see how human methods handle a real challenge?" As they hurried toward the new emergency, Tom caught Blue's eye. She flickered her skin in a pattern he had learned meant, "I know what they're doing." He gave her a small nod. They were being tested, but not in the way Gray thought. This wasn't about proving human methods were primitive. It was about proving they could work together, combining the best of both their approaches. And Tom had a feeling they were about to prove it in a big way. The Royal Quarter's main life support control room was chaos. Red warning lights flashed everywhere, and the normal soft hum of machinery had turned into an angry roar. "Status report," First Minister Gray demanded as Tom and Blue rushed in. "All environmental systems are failing," one engineer reported, their pink skin almost white with panic. "Temperature rising, air quality dropping, and the backup systems aren't responding." Tom looked at the readings on the main screen. The numbers were climbing in all the wrong ways. How long until critical failure? 20 minutes, the engineer said. Maybe less. We must evacuate the royal quarter immediately, Gray declared, trying to sound calm and in control. The human section can house. No, Blue interrupted, her skin dark with determination. We're not running away. We're going to fix this. She turned to Tom. What do you see? Tom was already moving between control panels, looking at readings. Something wasn't right. The system says everything's failing at once. But that's... He stopped, a memory clicking into place. That's what? Gray demanded. That's exactly what happened when we had a sensor failure in the human section last year, Tom said. The computer thought everything was breaking because it was getting false readings. Impossible. Gray snapped. Our sensors are perfect. They're quantum-linked to the main computer through these data nodes. Blue finished, floating over to a panel. She had spent enough time learning the station's systems to understand them now. But look at the power readings. They're all exactly the same. Tom nodded. Real sensor readings always have tiny variations. These are too perfect. Someone's feeding fake data into the system. Gray's skin went almost black. Are you suggesting sabotage? I'm suggesting, Tom said carefully, that sometimes things can look very complicated when they're actually simple. He pulled out his tablet and connected it to the system. Like how a basic data loop can make advanced sensors report a crisis that isn't real. But the temperature is rising, one engineer pointed out. We can feel it, because the computer thinks there's a problem and is actually creating one by trying to fix something that isn't broken. Blue said, understanding dawning in her voice. It's like when Tom taught me about feedback loops in audio systems. Tom's fingers flew over his tablet. Exactly. All we need to do is... Stop, Gray shouted. You can't interface human technology with our systems. The quantum fields will. Already did it, Tom said. Look. The main screen flickered, and suddenly all the warning signals turned green. The angry roar of machinery quieted to its normal hum. The temperature began dropping back to normal. What did you do? Gray demanded. Showed the computer the real sensor readings, Tom said simply. Once it saw nothing was actually wrong, it stopped trying to fix things. But how did you break through the quantum encryption? Our systems are. They're not encrypted on the maintenance backdoor, Blue interrupted. The one we were studying last week, remember? The one you said was a waste of time because it was too simple to matter. Gray's skin went from black to gray to almost white. That is, you can't. Can't what? Blue asked, her skin rippling with patterns that somehow managed to convey both authority and amusement. Can't solve problems because we understand both simple and complex systems. Can't work together using the best of both our knowledge. She floated over to the main control panel and began typing. And now that I'm checking the security logs, isn't it interesting that all these systems started failing right after someone accessed them, using your authorization codes, First Minister? The room went very quiet. Gray looked at the guards by the door, then at the engineers, then at Blue and Tom. They seemed to deflate slightly. I was only trying to protect our way of life, they said quietly, to prove that we don't need. We don't need what? Blue asked. New ideas. Different perspectives. The ability to solve problems in more than one way. She shook her head, her skin showing patterns of both disappointment and determination. I think it's time for some changes in the royal court, starting with the position of First Minister. 1 month after the life support incident, the International Space Station's Grand Hall was filled with both humans and aliens. The occasion, the first ever combined cultural exchange celebration, organized by Lady Blue herself. Tom stood near the back, wearing a compromise between his maintenance uniform and formal alien attire. He watched as Blue floated to the center of the hall, her skin glowing with excited patterns. My fellow beings, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. 3 months ago, I was caught doing something that, at the time, seemed embarrassing. She paused, her skin rippling with amusement. I was trying to learn the human dance called the Macarena. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd, both human and alien. The story had become something of a legend on the station. What I didn't realize then was that this moment of cultural confusion would lead to one of the most important lessons our people could learn. She gestured around the room. Look at us now, humans and aliens working together, learning from each other. Our advanced technology combined with human practical knowledge has made this station run better than ever before. She waved her hand, and the station's systems displayed some statistics. Maintenance problems are down by 60%. Communication errors have decreased by 70%. And most importantly, her skin flickered with joy. We've had 0 diplomatic incidents in the past month. Tom smiled, remembering how just yesterday he had taught 3 alien engineers how to fix a coffee machine, while they had shown him how to calibrate a quantum field generator. The exchange of knowledge went both ways now. And so, Blue continued, I think it's time for a proper demonstration of what we can achieve together. She pressed a button on her control panel, and music started playing. But it wasn't just any music. It was a unique blend of human rhythm and alien harmonics. Cultural consultant Reed, she called out, making Tom freeze. Would you help me demonstrate the sacred earth ritual of the Macarena? The properly choreographed version this time. Tom felt every eye in the room turn to him. Your Radiance, he said carefully. I thought we agreed that my dancing might cause an actual diplomatic incident. Blue's laugh tinkled through the hall. Perhaps, but isn't that the point? That we can laugh together, learn together, even make mistakes together. She floated down to where he stood and held out her hand. Her skin was cycling through happy patterns he had learned to read over the past months. After all, I believe humans have a saying, dance like nobody's watching. Pretty sure everyone's watching right now, Tom muttered, but he took her hand anyway. As they moved to the center of the hall, he noticed something interesting. The other aliens in the room were watching with curiosity rather than shock. A few were even showing patterns of amusement and interest on their skin. The music grew louder, and Blue began the familiar movements. This time, her timing was perfect. Tom joined in, doing his best to follow along, and soon other humans, and even some aliens joined them on the dance floor. You know, Tom said as they danced, when I fell through that ceiling, I thought I was going to get fired or cause a war. Blue's skin sparkled with laughter. Instead, you helped start a revolution. One maintenance job and bad dance move at a time. Speaking of maintenance, Tom grinned, did you fix that stuck door in section 3 like I showed you? Of course, she replied proudly. Though I think we can improve the design using some quantum principles I've been studying. Want to help me test it tomorrow? Tom looked around at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens, all attempting to do the Macarena together, some failing badly but all enjoying themselves. This was what real diplomacy looked like, not just formal meetings and fancy protocols, but people learning from each other, helping each other, and yes, even dancing badly together. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Your Radiance. Tom. Yes. On the dance floor, you can call me Blue.